She was just a girl. When she met him. Years later, she returned for his heart. The twin moons of Navaria cast their silver-blue glow across the crystalline forests, illuminating Tessa's path as she slipped between the luminescent trees. At 16, she was too old for sneaking out, according to her guardian matron Celine. But the arrival of the human expedition had stirred something restless within her. Just a glimpse, she whispered to herself, her bare feet silent against the moss-covered ground. The Navarians were peaceful, their society built on harmony with their world's unique energy currents, but they remained wary of outsiders, especially humans with their technology and ambitions. The research station glowed softly at the forest's edge, a structure of curved metal unlike anything in the Navarian settlements. Tessa crouched behind a cluster of crystal formations, her breath fogging in the cool night air as she watched the humans move about their camp. "You're quite good at hiding, but these sensors picked you up 10 minutes ago," the voice behind her made Tessa whirl around, losing her balance and tumbling backward. A human man stood there, tall, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He extended his hand to help her up. "I'm Nathan Reed, xenobotanist." "And you are?" Tessa hesitated before accepting his hand. "Tessa Valnori. I'm not supposed to be here." "That makes two of us," Nathan replied with a conspiratorial whisper. "I'm supposed to be cataloging night-blooming crystal formations, not chatting with locals. But I'd rather make a friend than document another phosphorescent plant." Something about his honesty disarmed her. Unlike other Navarians who could sense emotional currents, Tessa's gift was different, rarer. She could perceive the energetic threads connecting living beings across space and time. And around Nathan, she saw possibilities branching like silver filaments. "What's it like?" she asked suddenly. "Out there among the stars?" That question marked the beginning. Over the following weeks, Nathan snuck away from his research duties to meet Tessa at the edge of the crystal forest. He brought star maps and showed her holographic images of distant worlds. She taught him about Navaria's energy currents and how her people communed with their living planet. "Your eyes light up when you talk about the galaxy," Tessa said one evening as they watched shooting stars streak across Navaria's violet sky. "I want to see it all someday." Nathan's smile faded slightly. "It's beautiful, but complicated. There are tensions between worlds, politics, dangers." He looked at her, something protective in his gaze. "You're still young, Tessa. There's time." "I'm not a child," she protested, though the slight waver in her voice betrayed her. "No," he agreed, softly. "But you're not ready for what's out there. Neither was I when I first left Earth." The following day, Nathan's research team received urgent orders to return to the Galactic Alliance outpost. A border dispute had erupted in a neighboring system, and all non-essential personnel were being recalled. "I have to go," Nathan told her during their hasty goodbye at their usual meeting spot. "But listen to me, Tessa. If you still want to see the stars when you're older, come find me. The universe will still be waiting. Come back when you're ready, truly ready." "How will I know when that is?" she asked, fighting back tears. Nathan touched her cheek gently. "You'll know, and I promise if you come looking for me, I'll be there." As his ship lifted off from Navaria's surface, Tessa stood alone among the crystal trees, watching until it was nothing more than a pinpoint of light among countless stars. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the energy currents of her world pulsing beneath her feet. "I'll come back," she whispered, both to herself and to Nathan, across the impossible distance between them. "And when I do, I'll be ready." 8 years transformed Navaria's crystal forests only slightly, but they had reshaped Tessa Valnori entirely. At 24, she stood taller, her movements fluid with practiced confidence as she prepared her small interstellar vessel for departure. This would be her 7th journey off-world since joining the Navarian Diplomatic Corps, an unprecedented position for someone of her age. "You're certain about this assignment?" Matron Selene asked, her wizened face betraying concern. "The Proxima outpost is dangerously close to the disputed territories." Tessa secured the last of her equipment. "That's precisely why they need mediators. Besides, I've spent years training for exactly these situations." What she didn't say was that each mission took her closer to the heart of Galactic Alliance operations, closer to wherever Nathan Reed might be. His memory had never faded, instead transforming from a youthful infatuation into something more substantial, a beacon pulling her forward. "Your gift has grown strong," Selene observed, touching Tessa's shoulder. "Few Navarians can trace connection threads across such distances." "Not strong enough yet," Tessa replied softly. She still couldn't locate Nathan's specific thread among the billions crisscrossing the galaxy. But she was getting closer. The journey to Proxima Outpost took 3 standard weeks. Tessa spent the time reviewing diplomatic protocols and meditating, extending her perception outward through the void of space, searching for that familiar resonance she remembered from 8 years ago. Proxima Outpost hung like a gleaming silver, wheel against the backdrop of a red dwarf star. As Tessa's ship docked, she felt the familiar disorientation of stepping into a place thrumming with thousands of life threads from dozens of species. The cacophony of connections always overwhelmed her senses initially. "Representative Valnori?" A Terran officer greeted her at the airlock. "Welcome to Proxima. I'm Commander Daniels. We've been expecting you." The situation was more tense than her briefing had indicated. 3 separate delegations, Terran, Arcturian, and Centauri, were deadlocked over mining rights in an asteroid, belt rich with rare minerals. The Navarians, with their reputation for neutrality, had been requested as mediators. For 6 days, Tessa immersed herself in the negotiations, using her natural empathic abilities to sense undercurrents of emotion and hidden motivations. On the 7th day, during a particularly heated exchange, the station's alert system blared to life. "Unidentified vessels approaching from Sector 9, announced the automated system. "All personnel to secure positions." The diplomatic session dissolved into chaos. Commander Daniels appeared at Tessa's side. "Representative, please come with me to the secure area." As they hurried through corridors suddenly alive with rushing personnel, Tessa's senses flared. Among the tangled threads of fear and determination surrounding her, one thread pulsed with familiar resonance. Distant, but unmistakable. "Nathan," she whispered, stopping abruptly. "Pardon?" Commander Daniels looked confused. Tessa shook her head. "Nothing. Is there some way I can help? My abilities might be useful." "The defense coordinator might appreciate your input," Daniels conceded after a moment's consideration. The command center buzzed with activity. Officers called out reports while tactical displays showed the approaching vessels, mercenary ships. Tessa quickly gathered, likely hired by one of the factions to intimidate the others. "We need to evacuate the civilian diplomatic corps," someone was saying. "No," Tessa interjected firmly. "That's exactly what they want, to disrupt the negotiations. I can help defuse this." A tall man turned from the central display, and Tessa's heart stuttered. For one breathless moment, she thought. But no, this wasn't Nathan, though something in his bearing reminded her of him. "What exactly can a Navarian diplomat do against armed mercenaries?" the man asked skeptically. Tessa straightened. "More than you might think, Commander. Reed. Commander Jason Reed." The name hit her like a physical blow. "Reed, are you related to Nathan Reed?" Jason's expression shifted subtly. "My brother. You know him?" "We met on Navaria years ago," she managed to say calmly, despite the sudden racing of her pulse. "Is he stationed here?" A shadow crossed Jason's face. No. He's currently on extended medical leave on Terran colony Epsilon. He was injured during the Deneb conflict last year. The information landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through Tessa's carefully constructed composure. Injured. Medical leave. The thread she'd sensed hadn't been proximity. It had been emotional resonance triggered by meeting Nathan's brother. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, recovering herself. "But right now, I believe I can help with your mercenary problem. Navarians can project emotional states across short distances. If I can get close enough to their ships..." The next hours passed in a blur of focused activity. Using her abilities in ways she'd never attempted before, Tessa projected waves of uncertainty and doubt toward the mercenary vessels, disrupting their coordination until Alliance reinforcements arrived. When it was over, Jason Reed approached her. "That was impressive, Representative Valnori. Nathan mentioned a Navarian once, but I never imagined..." "Do you communicate with him often?" Tessa asked, trying to sound casual. "When he responds," Jason replied grimly, "he's different since the injury, withdrawn." Tessa made her decision then, looking out at the stars beyond the station's viewports. 8 years of preparation, of pushing herself beyond the boundaries of her world and her capabilities, had led to this moment. "Commander Reed, once these. Negotiations conclude, I'd like to request transport to Terran Colony Epsilon. I believe it's time I fulfilled an old promise." Terran Colony Epsilon resembled Navaria in only one respect: the vibrant sunsets that painted the sky in shades of purple and gold. Everything else, from the prefabricated structures to the carefully terraformed landscapes, felt meticulously designed, rather than naturally evolved. Tessa stood at the observation deck of the Medical Rehabilitation Center, watching the sun sink below the artificial horizon, gathering her courage. She'd tracked Nathan here only to discover he had departed 3 weeks earlier, leaving no forwarding details except a cryptic note in his file, returning to Origins for extended recovery. It had taken Tessa little time to understand. Nathan had gone back to Navaria, the place where they first met. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had spent 8 years traveling outward, seeking him across the stars, only to learn he had retreated to her homeworld. Now, as her ship approached Navaria's crystalline atmosphere, Tessa felt both homecoming and apprehension twisting within her. "We're beginning descent," Representative Valnori, the pilot informed her. "The settlement coordinates you provided are registering minimal technology signatures. Are you certain this is your destination?" "Yes," Tessa replied, recognizing the remote region near the western crystal formations, far from the main Navarian. Settlements, but close to where the human research station had once stood. "That's where he'll be." The transport touched down in a clearing among towering crystal structures that hummed faintly in Navaria's unique energy currents. Tessa disembarked alone, declining the pilot's offer to wait. "I may be here sometime," she explained. "I'll signal when I need extraction." Walking through the familiar landscape, Tessa extended her perception, seeking Nathan's thread among the vibrant tapestry of Navaria's life forms. She found it quickly, a distinctive resonance, muted but unmistakable, leading toward a structure nestled against a cliff face half a kilometer away. It wasn't what she expected. The dwelling blended Terran architecture with Navarian design principles, a synthesis of worlds. A small garden contained both earth plants and native Navarian flora, coexisting in careful balance. Before she could approach the entrance, a figure emerged from inside. Nathan stood framed in the doorway, older and leaner than the man in her memories. His hair was longer, streaked with premature gray, and he moved with a slight hesitation in his left leg. But it was his eyes that struck Tessa most. Still the same warm brown, but guarded now, carrying shadows they hadn't held before. "I felt "Someone approaching," he said, his voice rougher than she remembered. The energy currents shift differently around Navarians. Then recognition dawned slowly across his features. "Tessa?" She stepped forward into the fading sunlight. "You told me to come back when I was ready." For a moment, neither spoke. 8 years stretched between them like an uncrossable void, filled with everything they had become in the interim. "You've changed," he finally said, his eyes taking in the confident set of her shoulders, the diplomatic insignia on her attire. "So have you," she replied softly. Nathan gestured to his leg. "Not all changes are improvements." "I met your brother at Proxima Outpost," Tessa said. "He told me you were injured." A flash of something, anger perhaps, or shame, crossed Nathan's face. "Jason talks too much." He turned back toward the dwelling. "You might as well come in. It'll be dark soon." The interior was sparse but comfortable, illuminated by the natural glow of Navarian crystal fragments incorporated into the design. Nathan moved around the space with practiced familiarity, preparing a simple meal while Tessa observed him, noting how he favored his right side. "Why did you come back here?" she asked as he set 2 steaming cups on the table between them. "Quiet. Isolation. Healing properties of the crystal formations." He shrugged. "Take your pick. Those sound like reasons in a medical report, not your real motivation." Nathan's gaze sharpened. "And what exactly is your motivation for tracking me down across half the galaxy, Representative Valnori? Diplomatic curiosity?" The barrier between them was tangible now. His defensiveness, her uncertainty. This wasn't the reunion she had imagined during those years of preparation and growth. "I kept my promise," she said simply. "I wanted to see if you'd kept yours." Nathan's expression softened marginally. "I said I'd be here if you came looking, and here I am." He gestured to his surroundings with a hint of self-deprecation. Not exactly the heroic figure you probably built up in your mind, but present nonetheless. "I never needed a hero," Tessa replied. "Just the man who showed me the stars and trusted I'd find my own way to them." Something in Nathan's carefully constructed defenses wavered. He looked away, toward the window where Navaria's twin moons were rising. "That man might not exist anymore, Tessa. The Deneb conflict changed a lot of things." Tessa reached across the table, not quite touching him. "Tell me what happened." For a moment, she thought he would refuse. Then, haltingly, Nathan began to speak of diplomatic missions gone wrong, of attempting to evacuate civilians from a contested moon when mercenary forces attacked, of waking up in a medical facility weeks later with a shattered leg and the knowledge that not everyone had made it out. "I couldn't save them all," he concluded, his voice hollow. "And afterward, I couldn't see the point in continuing. So I requested indefinite leave and came here. The last place I remembered feeling like the universe made sense." In the silence that followed, Tessa finally understood. They had both been seeking something across the years and distance. She had been searching for him, but he had been looking for a version of himself that no longer existed. "The universe rarely makes sense," she said gently. "That's why we need connections to anchor us." Nathan met her gaze, really seeing her for the first time since her arrival. "You're not the girl I left behind." "No," Tessa agreed, "and you're not the man who left. But perhaps that's where we begin again. Not as who we were, but as who we've become." Outside, the crystal formations began their night song, vibrating in harmonic resonance with Navaria's energy currents. The familiar melody flowed through the dwelling, around 2 people finding their way back to each other across a gulf of years and experience, neither quite ready to close the final distance, but no longer standing apart. Morning light filtered through the crystal formations, casting rainbow patterns across Nathan's dwelling. Tessa stood outside, performing the traditional Navarian sunrise meditation, her body moving fluidly through positions that channeled the planet's energy currents. From the doorway, Nathan watched, a steaming cup in his hand. "Your technique has improved," he observed when she finished. "More disciplined than I remember." Tessa accepted the offered drink. "The diplomatic corps required mastery of our traditions. They believe we can't represent Navaria without embodying its principles." "And did you find what you were looking for out there?" Nathan asked, his question carrying more weight than its simple words suggested. Before she could answer, a distant rumble disturbed the morning stillness. They turned simultaneously toward the sound, a ship descending through the atmosphere, its trajectory indicating it would land near the main settlement. "Are you expecting visitors?" Nathan asked, tension evident in his posture. Tessa shook her head. "No scheduled diplomatic arrivals for another cycle." She closed her eyes, extending her perception outward, seeking the threads of those aboard the approaching vessel. Her eyes snapped open. "Mining consortium representatives. Their emotional signatures are determined, aggressive." Nathan's expression darkened. "The crystal deposits. I should have known they'd come eventually." "What do you mean?" "There's been increasing interest in Navarian crystal formations, not just for their beauty, but for potential applications in advanced propulsion systems. I've been monitoring communications." He gestured toward a modest comm array partially hidden among native plants. "Your planet's protectorate status has kept the corporations at bay until now, but something's changed," Tessa finished, dread settling in her stomach. "The Galactic Alliance has been weakened by the border conflicts. Protectorate enforcement isn't what it once was." They moved with unspoken coordination, Nathan gathering information devices while Tessa contacted the settlement elders through her diplomatic channels. Within an hour, they were traversing the forest toward the main settlement, Nathan moving with determination despite his impaired gait. "You don't have to involve yourself," Tessa said as they paused for him to rest. "This isn't your fight. It became my fight 8 years ago," he replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "When I realize what this world means, not just to science, but to me personally." The words hung between them, laden with unspoken meaning. Tessa reached out, her fingers lightly touching the back of his hand. The contact sent a ripple through her perception, his thread illuminating with complex emotions, protectiveness, regret, and something deeper that mirrored her own feelings. "We should keep moving," Nathan said softly, though he didn't immediately withdraw his hand. The settlement was in controlled chaos when they arrived. The mining representatives, 3 humans and a centauri, stood in the central gathering space, surrounded by concerned Navarians. Matron Celine was addressing them, with diplomatic restraint that barely masked her disapproval. "Regardless of recent galactic developments, Navaria remains a protected world under Section 7 of the Interstellar Conservation Accord," she was saying as Tessa and Nathan approached. "Accords can be renegotiated," replied a sharp-featured human woman. "Especially when significant economic interests are at stake. The crystal's energy conversion potential is too valuable to leave untapped." "Director Harlow," Nathan called out, recognition and distaste evident in his voice. "Still, exploiting regulatory loopholes for corporate gain." The woman turned, surprise briefly crossing her features before a calculating smile took its place. "Dr. Reed, I heard you'd gone native after your unfortunate accident. How interesting to find you here." "In an official capacity," Tessa interjected, stepping forward with the full authority of her diplomatic position. "Representative Tessa Val-Nori of the Navarian Diplomatic Corps. This meeting was not sanctioned through proper channels." "Merely an exploratory visit," Director Harlow replied, smoothly, "to discuss mutually beneficial opportunities." What followed was 3 days of tense negotiations. While Tessa leveraged her diplomatic training and connections to stall the consortium's advances, Nathan worked tirelessly to document the ecological importance of the crystal formations and their irreplaceable role in Navarian culture. On the third night, exhausted from hours of arguments and counter-proposals, they sat alone beside a luminescent pool near the settlement's edge. "They won't give up," Nathan said quietly. "Once corporations like Harlow's set their sights on a resource, they find ways to obtain it, through policy, pressure, or worse. Then we'll find better ways to protect it," Tessa replied, determination in her voice. "My connections in the diplomatic corps, your scientific expertise. Together, we might have a chance." Nathan looked at her, his expression softening. "When did you become so formidable?" "When a certain xenobotanist told me to come back when I was ready for the challenges of the galaxy," she answered with a small smile. The moment stretched between them, years of separate journeys converging. Nathan reached out, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw with a gentleness that belied the strength in his hands. "I never expected you to actually return," he admitted. "I thought I was giving a kind dismissal to a young girl with an infatuation." "And now?" Tessa asked, her heart quickening. "Now I realize I've been waiting. Not for that girl, but for the woman she would become." His hand fell away. "But I'm not the man you were seeking either. The idealistic scientist is gone, Tessa." "I'm not looking for who you were," she said, moving closer. "I've spent 8 years becoming someone who could stand beside who you are now." When their lips met, Tessa felt their threads intertwining, past and present, merging into something new. The kiss deepened, years of separation dissolving in the connection they'd both sought across the stars. Later, as they strategized their approach to the coming confrontation with the mining consortium, there was a new synchronicity between them. Two people who had finally found their way back to each other, stronger for the journey and the scars they carried. "Whatever happens," Nathan said as dawn approached, his arm around Tessa as they watched the first light touch the crystal formations. "I'm glad you came back." "So am I," she replied, resting her head against his shoulder. "It seems some paths are meant to converge, no matter how far they diverge first." The Galactic Alliance Council chamber buzzed with voices as delegates from 27 worlds debated the proposed amendments to the Interstellar Conservation Accord. At the center of the controversy stood Navaria, a small world suddenly thrust into the spotlight as the test case for how the Alliance would balance economic interests against cultural and ecological preservation. In the 6 months since the Mining Consortium's initial approach, Tessa had rallied diplomatic support while Nathan had compiled irrefutable scientific evidence on the crystal's integral role in Navaria's ecosystem. Together, they had forced the matter into formal alliance proceedings rather than allowing it to be settled through corporate pressure. "The delegation from Navaria may present their final arguments," announced the council chairperson, an elderly Arcturian whose neutral tone revealed nothing of her position. Tessa rose, the formal robes of her diplomatic office flowing around her as she moved to the speaker's platform. Behind her sat Nathan, his posture straight, despite the long hours of testimony, his presence a steady anchor amid the political currents. "Honored representatives," Tessa began, her voice clear and confident, "we have presented extensive documentation on Navaria's unique crystalline ecosystem and its cultural significance to my people. But today, I wish to speak of something more fundamental, the principle upon which the Alliance was founded." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the chamber. "We created this body not merely to facilitate trade or resolve disputes, but to protect the diversity of life and culture across our galaxy. When we designate a world as protected, we make a promise that transcends economic cycles and political shifts." As she spoke, Tessa extended her perception subtly, reading the emotional threads connecting the delegates, identifying which arguments would resonate with which representatives. This was the culmination of everything she had trained for. The ability to navigate both the spoken and unspoken currents of interstellar diplomacy. The mining consortium claims the crystal formations are merely resources to be harvested, she continued. Dr. Reed's research proves they are living entities in symbiosis with Nevaria itself. To extract them would be to wound not just a landscape, but a complex organism that has evolved over millennia. When she concluded, Director Harlow took the platform for the consortium, presenting sleek projections of economic benefits and technological advancements. Progress requires sacrifice, she argued smoothly. The potential advances in propulsion, technology alone could revolutionize travel between worlds. The council's deliberations stretched into hours. As the chamber emptied for a recess, Nathan found Tessa in a quiet observation gallery overlooking the sprawling Alliance complex. "You were magnificent," he said, coming to stand beside her. "I've watched seasoned diplomats with decades of experience who couldn't command attention the way you did." Tessa smiled, though tension remained in her shoulders. "It might not be enough. The economic arguments are compelling, especially to worlds struggling after the border conflicts. Then we'll find another approach," Nathan replied, his hand finding hers. "Whatever the council decides, this isn't over." She turned to face him, struck again by how much had changed between them since her return to Nevaria. The guarded man she had found living in isolation had gradually given way to someone new, neither the carefree scientist of her childhood memories nor the wounded veteran, but a blend of both, tempered by experience yet softened by renewed purpose. "What if we lose?" she asked quietly. "Then we lose together," he answered simply, "and we keep fighting." The resolution came not through grand speeches or dramatic confrontations, but through a compromise proposed by an unexpected ally. Jason, Reed, Nathan's brother, representing the Terran scientific community. The value of Nevaria's crystals lies not in their extraction, but in what we can learn from them in their natural state, he argued before the council. "I propose establishing a joint research initiative with Nevarian oversight to study the crystal's properties while preserving their integrity." When the final vote narrowly approved the protected research designation, prohibiting extraction while allowing limited scientific access, Tessa felt the tension of months finally release. Across the chamber, she met Director Harlow's gaze and saw the calculated acceptance there. The consortium would retreat for now, though Tessa harbored no illusions that the threat had passed permanently. "We've bought time," Nathan said as they left the council chambers. "Perhaps enough to develop better protections before they try again." "It's more than that," Tessa replied. "We've established a precedent for other worlds facing similar pressures. Sometimes that's how lasting change begins, not with complete victory, but with a single step in the right direction." 3 days later, they stood together on the observation deck of a transport vessel bound for Nevaria. The vast star field stretched before them, countless points of light against the infinite. "Darkness, have you decided?" Nathan asked, referring to the offer Tessa had received to join the Alliance's permanent diplomatic corps, a prestigious position that would take her away from Nevaria for extended periods. "I have," she said, turning to face him. "I'm going to accept, but with conditions. I'll serve as a representative for all protected worlds, not just Alliance interests, and I'll require a research liaison." She smiled. "Someone with extensive knowledge of endangered ecosystems." Nathan's expression shifted from surprise to understanding. "That sounds like a position I might be qualified for." "I thought it might," Tessa replied, moving closer. "We've both spent enough time searching across the stars. Perhaps now we can explore them together." "Together," Nathan agreed, drawing her into his arms. "Though I should warn you, I'm still not fully healed. There may be days when I can't keep up, when the past pulls me back." Tessa placed her hand over his heart, feeling the steady rhythm that had become as familiar to her as Nevaria's energy currents. And there will be times when diplomatic obligations separate us, when duty calls one of us away. But we'll always find our way back. As the ship accelerated toward the jump point, Navaria's sun appeared as just another star among billions. Yet to Tessa it remained distinct, the origin point of a journey that had led her across the galaxy only to return her to where she began, but with a perspective transformed by distance and time. 8 years ago you showed me the stars, she said softly. Now I get to show you how they look from worlds you've never seen. Nathan's smile held no more shadows. I can't think of a better guide. Their kiss deepened as the ship made the jump to hyperspace, stars streaking into luminous ribbons around them, 2 threads, once separated by vast distances, now woven together into a pattern that stretched across the cosmos, not an ending, but a continuation of paths that had always been destined to converge. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, with its countless worlds and endless conflicts, their story was perhaps insignificant. Yet in finding each other across time and space, in choosing to face whatever came next side by side, they had created something that defied the cold equations of probability. A constellation of their own making, charting a course through whatever darkness lay ahead, guided by the light they created together.